So I've been chitting my potatoes. Now, not every gardener recommends that you do this, but I always do it with the first earlies or the new potatoes. So what is chitting? Chitting basically is setting your potatoes out to sprout. And what you do is you encourage really strong, healthy, stubby, dark coloured sprouts to form, rather than the big white, spindly, kind of spidery things that you get when you leave your potato at the back of your food cupboard. And this also means that your potatoes will be ready just that little bit earlier than if you planted them straight out. So these sprouts are formed from the eyes of the potato. I'm growing Swift, and that is a first early. I'm also going to be growing a main crop variety called Anya and Pink Fir Apple, and those are really cool because they're all knobbly and they're kind of funny looking, and they're really expensive to buy in the supermarket, but they cost the same as a seed potato as this one. So how do you chip potatoes? Well, the easiest way I find is using an egg box. I mean, it's perfectly designed for this job. And what you need to do is you don't want to put them anywhere dark. That's the worst thing you can do to your potatoes. Put them somewhere that is cool but light, and that's how you'll get these strong, stubby sprouts. Leave them in that place for 1 to 2 months until the soil has warmed up and is ready to plant. So, do you chit? So at the moment it is still too cold to put your potato directly into the soil. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to plant these in pots, large pots, and then I'm going to leave them in the polytunnel where they'll be more protected from any kind of late frost that we might get. These potatoes originated from South America, and although a lot have been bred to cope in our countries, they still will not be happy if we get a sudden sharp frost. I'm going to use this big old container here. Little tip with containers like these is check around the rim, especially if they've been stored over winter, because often you'll find that slugs and snails like to make their home there. I haven't found any this time, but I have done before. So many snails love to hide where it's warm and protected. Always put some drainage in. I know some people say you don't need to, but basically if you've got holes in your pot, you're filling it up with compost. That compost blocks the holes, so therefore the water can't drain away. Now, people use broken terracotta pots. I haven't got any. You could use cardboard, you could use old plastic pots upside down, whatever you've got. You don't have to go mad though and put loads and loads, just enough to cover those holes. Then you're going to put your compost in. So although I've only used 3 tubers, that's as many as I'm going to do in a pot this size, because if you cram them in too much, they just take up too much energy and food, and what you get is a really small yield. So just by putting 3 healthy tubers in, I'm going to get a load more potatoes than if I was to cram in 5 or 6 in one pot. So that means I've got quite a lot of potatoes left over that I've been chitting, and rather than using another pot, which absolutely you can do, what I'm going to do is show you how you can use an old compost bag to grow your potatoes in. So this time of year, a lot of us will have empty compost bags. Hopefully we've been doing our mulching and we're getting our planting all ready. So what you need to do is put a few holes in the bottom for drainage. Don't want to make them too big or the bag can rip. And then you might have heard the term earthing up when it comes to potatoes, and what that means is as potatoes grow and the soil comes away from the tuber, then the sunlight can make the potato go green, and once the potato starts to become green, then it is actually poisonous. It's not going to really harm you, but it'll make you have a very dodgy tummy, and you just don't want that. So that is one of the reasons why we earth up, and earth up just means piling up earth over the potatoes as they grow, and that includes a lot of the foliage as well. So just chuck that compost over the top. So when you're planting in a container, you just want to plant them in halfway like I've done here. Then I'm going to cover them with compost, but only a small layer. Then as they grow, I'm going to keep covering them a bit more until I can't cover them anymore. And that should not only protect them from sunlight, but it will also encourage them to produce more spuds. So it's a win-win. You might think, how on earth do I earth up with a bag? So what you want to do is you want to roll it down. And if you've got a pretty compost bag like this one, they can look quite fun on a patio or just in your garden, grouped together looking after your potatoes. So I've rolled it down about halfway, maybe just a little bit more. I'm going to put some compost in, then I'm going to put the potatoes in. Now what I can do is add more compost as they grow, but the neat trick with this is that you just roll the bag up as they start to grow, and that will protect your potatoes. Brilliant. So I filled up my compost bag just under halfway, and what I'm going to do now is add the little chitted potatoes, and again I'm just going to pop in 3. So I'm going to twist them in, a bit of a light bulb motion just to make sure they've got good contact with the compost, and I'm going to plant them in a triangle formation. Always make sure you plant them with the most eyes, the most chitted sprouts upwards. And then when you've done that, what you want to do is put a good thick layer over the top of the potatoes. I'm going to do it with the pot here. You don't want to be able to see them, and you don't want, when it rains, for the compost to wash off, but again, don't fill up the whole of the pot or the bag. There are different types of potatoes, and they can be a bit confusing. You might have first early, second earliest and main crops. You don't need to worry about chitting a main crop potato. They can go straight out into the ground, but you'll find that first earliest, your new potatoes, do benefit from being chitted. Potatoes are a really great crop to grow if you've got new ground. Say you've taken on an allotment and the soil is quite hard and compact, because what potatoes do as they grow down, they help break up the soil. So not only are you getting some food, you're also getting the potatoes to do the work of breaking up that soil for you, so it's nice and friable and light to work with for the crop you're going to put in next year. Potatoes are quite hungry, but they're also thirsty, and they do need quite a lot of water. So always try and put in a water butt if you can, so you can keep your potatoes nice and moist. And also I'm using really good compost with lots of nutrients in it. Eventually those nutrients will run out, and I will start feeding my potatoes, probably as they're in a pot, with a liquid feed once a week using a watering can. So here we are. I've got my potatoes in my pot and in my bag, and I'm going to put them back in the polytunnel until that weather warms up, and then they can come outside and be in my garden. Planting in pots is such a great thing to do, especially with kids, because once they've grown, you can get your kids to dig for treasure, and they absolutely love finding those golden potatoes, and then you can go and cook them and eat them straight away, and nothing beats the taste of a freshly picked and cooked new potato.